Hi, Sue Borison here from Your Teen Media, and today I'm here with Scilla Andreen, award-winning producer, director, and CEO and founder of Indieflix. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
So I watched an interview with you, and you started with, "Why should you listen to me?" So I want to hear, why should we listen to you?
Wow, that was in China, right? That was in Hong Kong, I think, for the South China Morning Post. I think people should listen to me because I'm just a regular person. I'm a mother of 6. I am a filmmaker. I'm a college dropout. I am not a licensed professional in mental health. I am not an educator, but I am someone who deeply, deeply cares about people and their feelings, how they feel. And I have learned through making this trilogy of films, Angst, Like, and the Upstanders, that are all sort of address mental health, and we enter that conversation through different lenses. I think what's important is that everybody know you can make a difference. You can learn, to be kinder to yourself and connect with yourself so you can actually help other people. And I think that is really the elixir. That's the secret. It's not about getting more professionals, degreed professionals available, and insurance covering it, and better rates and practice. I think it's about a combination of therapy, but also breaking the stigma, learning how to speak up, learning how to not judge and not be afraid, and to be better listeners. And I've learned so much making these films. I just want to share it with everyone and prove to everyone, guess what? You've got this. Like, we can do this.
Well, that's great. And it's so great how empowered you feel by learning from the films that you've put out. So that you have Angst, Like, and Upstanders in this trilogy.
Yep.
So first of all, do you see the opportunity to add more to that?
I do. We've got a couple we're working on already. One is called Level Up. It's all about gaming. Another one after that is called Lessons Learned, which is all about the state of our schools, teacher, student, and parent burnout.
Well, I can't wait to watch them. That's exciting. We'll have to be in touch when they're coming out so we can talk about those too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you have 6 kids. When I looked at the credits, you have a few Andreens on the credits.
Yeah.
So family members?
Family members in front of the camera and behind the camera. The whole family's always involved in every movie. It's just they always end up on the cutting room floor, unless there's inserts and shots of this or that. But in particular, the family made it in front of the camera. Otherwise, I make these movies with my son and also with my daughter.
Wow, that's such an opportunity.
It is. It's really great.
Do you get to be the boss still?
I'm the director and the producer, so.
They have to listen to you.
Yeah, but we've already established that. But at the same time, as we know, anyone who has kids, there's a point that it kind of flips, and you're kind of, it's just a role reversal. So we're there as well.
So we talked to parents of teenagers, and while you were making these movies, I don't know if you had teenagers at the time, but you have parented teenagers. So, what was the biggest takeaway from each of those 3 movies that you would wished you could tell all parents of teenagers?
Great question. Thank you. It's probably one of the most important things that I would love to share with parents is, when your kids don't want to talk to you, how do you talk to them? Especially when they're struggling or you feel like you could dive in and help. The best way to help is to not rescue and fix. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn. I think the best way to help is to learn to be a better listener. Always start a conversation with how much you love them. Point out the good things about them. And then learn to sit with them in their stuff and together formulate a plan and let them help spearhead it and lead it. And our job is to help support them. If we can't teach them, model for them, and let them fumble, grow, whatever, find their way, it's going to be harder for them. And we want to teach them to be resilient, to have grit, to have faith in themselves. My son, I am the queen of rescue and fix because I can, right? Because I can make it easier for you, and then you can go on and do other things. And my son got really upset with me once he was a teenager, 16. He lost his phone, and I was really upset. And I was like, it's okay. You don't have to be so upset. We can get you a new phone. It's backed up in the cloud. Don't worry, whatever. And he was like, he goes, he was so annoyed with me. And he goes, can you just let me be angry? Just right now, can you just let me be angry and don't look at me like something's wrong with me? I'm pissed right now. And I want to just let that feeling, I want to feel it and I want to let it go. And you just need to back off. Like, I know all this stuff, but I'm mad right now. And just trust that you parented me well, that I will be able to come to a place where I'm calm and I can make a good decision, but just give me that space. And I was like, okay. And then I think that really woke me up, because we should trust that we've parented our kids well. Because
But
then
that's so hard.
it's so hard, because that's part of letting go, right?
Yeah.
And I think since, like, especially since like 9/11, when suddenly the world felt very unsafe and we became more helicopter parents and no kids playing in the front yard and, stranger danger and all this stuff. I mean, the world is actually a really safe place right now. We give our kids phones. I did. My kids had phones because it was like, I want to make sure I have connection with you at every given time. When we were growing up, and everyone always says this, we went out and played and came home and it got dark, right? Like, and there was a trust there. We need to start running that kind of energy in the world too. Like, we cannot be fear-based. We
So
have to start trusting.
that's really beautiful advice. And some of that you learned hands-on parenting, and some of it you learned through doing these movies. When you did Upstanders, did you feel the same way about those stories?
Upstanders was such a different experience for me because I was so personally bullied. Very different because it was the old days, physical. Bullying now looks very different, and you cannot see it. There's no bloody shirt or black eye, or there's nothing. You can't see it. It's happening all the time, and kids don't tell their parents because they don't want their phones taken away. And there's so much, like, you can disguise who you are and bully somebody, and so then the kid doesn't know who it is. So there's a paranoia and fear that sets in, and distrust, and they start to become isolated and lonely, and they live in this stage of fight or flight. As a parent, I don't even know what to do, right? Like, yes, you need to, now there are laws that are being put into place. You have to guarantee to your kids you will not take away their phones, but we're going to formulate a plan, and we're going to figure out how we're going to do this. And it's not about, like, going out and having words with the parent of that kid. Like, it's an opportunity to teach. So I do tend to lean in a little more on these because kids are dying, right? They're taking their lives, and they don't realize. I mean, I think having made this film, all the kids said they don't tell their parents. 1 in 5 will tell their parent or a grown-up, and the others don't. And because they don't want their phones taken away from them, or they think their parents are going to make it worse, and they don't think the schools can do anything either. So it's this real conundrum, right?
So even that boy who, that terrible story of the boy taking his own life, he did tell his parents.
He did, and they did everything they could. And this was, before there were laws, and the schools were like, we can't investigate. It's off of school campus. It's outside of school hours. You can't hold parents liable in any way. And so they realized that there needs to be coordination. There needs to be some, preventative stuff, and there needs to be an effect as well, like repercussions. And so when you can make some boundaries, when you can make it clear, like, just like in the days when, underage drinking, when a family had a party, a house party with kids who weren't of age, when mothers of drunk driving and people got involved, and they said, okay, if you have a party and underage kids are drinking and they drive home and there's an accident, those parents of that house party are liable. And suddenly parents were like, no drinking here, give me your keys. Like, suddenly the parents leaned in. And I think that's what we're starting to see with these laws, these more comprehensive laws. Schools are able to take action. Parents are held liable. We're starting to create a path to be able to communicate this. But all the kids have said, the only way they see there being any sort of positive impact is more kids need to stand up with each other and do this. And I mean, and that's just going to take a lot of courage. It's that safety in numbers and getting that message out.
Do you have any anecdotal stories about kids watching the movie and the impact it has on them?
Unbelievable. And I actually, because there's a suicide story in it, I always err on the side of caution, and these films always go out to like fifth grade and up. And this one, we actually sort of skewed the youngest age a little higher to like 12, 13 instead of 8 to 10. But one of the screenings in Los Angeles, there was, I don't know, almost 300 people. I'd say 80% of them were kids, and they were like 8 to 12. And then some older ones too. And I was like, oh my God, like parents were just dropping the kids off to come into the theater to watch. This was right before COVID hit. Like it was early March. And I had kids coming up after the screening, lots of boys, especially, which I was really surprised, and girls lined up saying to me, what would you do if somebody was being mean to you on your phone? Would you tell your parents? I had one kid, not one, I had several kids ask if I would go see a therapist. Would I go talk to like a doctor? And I was like, absolutely I would. And I would tell my mom and dad. Like, you have to tell someone, because you need people on your side to help you, and they can help you. They opened up. It was so amazing. And none of them, as much as they all knew the suicide story was a very sad story, I asked them, I said, was it difficult for you to watch that story? And they said, no, we see that. Like, they're living it. So it wasn't anything new for them, right?
Did anybody come up to you who was the perpetrator?
Yes, I did have a couple of kids come up to me. One kid said, I didn't realize that, I'm just trying to be funny, and I, and then they get attention for it. I didn't know it was hurting people that much. I wish one of my friends would have told me, because now I wonder what they think of me. Like, it creates this insecurity all the way around. I had another girl come up and she just said, I had no idea. Like, I thought that was the cool thing to do, right? Because everybody then gives you all this attention. And so it's just interesting. Everybody kind of looks at the world through their own, through their own eyes.
Okay, my last question. You said that you found hope in doing these movies. What hope can you share with us?
I think that what I love is that the answer is not government, it's not corporations, it's not even schools. I think, you can look in the mirror and you can start, if we can start having that awareness to observe the negative talk we have, we are all bullies. And I would say, oh, no, we're not. I'm so nice to people. I was so bullied. I don't bully anyone. But we bully ourselves. We look in the mirror and we say things to ourselves on a regular basis we would never say to someone else. I was about to go on a TV show to promote my book. And then the first thing I did, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh, you should have got more sleep. You should have drank more water. Why didn't you go get that other outfit from the dry cleaner? Like, why? And then I'm thinking, I would never say that to someone an hour and a half before they're going on air and saying, why didn't you sleep more? Why didn't you drink more water? Why didn't you I would have said, you're going to be great. You wrote a book, go talk about that. So we do this all the time on ourselves. Like I sit down, like I've been eating so much during COVID-19, quarantine, whatever. I'm like the COVID-15, whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, why am I talking to myself like that? Let's talk about how grateful I am that I'm healthy, that I'm home with my children. So if we can start turning that around, the difference, the chemical reaction in the brain, the way it starts to retrain us, the way that we can learn to connect with ourselves, to better connect with others, the fact that there's a starting point and you don't have to have it all laid out. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to go buy it. You don't need someone to give it to you. You have it. You were born with it, and you just need to tap it and start using it. And to me, that is so cool and so empowering, and it's game changing.
Okay, tell us the name of the book.
It's called The Creative Coping Toolkit, and I can't believe I don't have one with me. I keep giving them away.
Is it available now?
It's available now. It's on Amazon. It's called The Creative Coping Toolkit. And I can't believe I don't have a copy handy. But it's basically 10 activities that gamify talking about your feelings and create connection. And you don't even know that you're actually like doing cognitive behavioral therapy, exercises that are based in CBT. So I wrote it because I learned I have social anxiety. I'm textbook. And I had always been that way. And I never told anyone because I didn't want anyone to know, because I just thought I was just broken or a little bit less than everyone else. And when I made Angst, I realized, oh my gosh, it's social anxiety. I had created hacks as a little kid, and it turns out those hacks are actually based in real brain science. So someone kept saying, you need to share those tips and those tricks and those hacks with people. So the book is filled with that.
Okay, our last question, one hack.
One hack: every time you go into a doorway, say something nice about yourself. I have a lot of trouble with that. Every time I go through a doorway, I'm like, and so sometimes my fallback is, you're okay, or you're good enough, or I have to sometimes say something nice about someone else. But the goal is to really be something about yourself. Another hack would be, the worry jar. You can put the worry jar in the solution jar, and you can just have some paper there. And when you write it down, you put it in there. You don't deal with it right then. The families, like anyone can put a worry jar in the worry jar. And at another time, you can go in and look at it, and you could talk about it. And you can come up with a solution. You write it on the other side, and you put it in the solution jar. And eventually the worry jar goes down.
Okay, they seem so simple. Those things worked and work.
They work, yes. And there's a bunch more. There's some really good ones in there.
Okay, so go out and get the book, everybody. Scilla Andreen, thank you so much for being here with us, and stay well, and nice meeting you.
Thanks, Susan.